and welcome to the Your Good News podcast with me, Katherine Getty. It's easy to believe the news around us, that the world is dark and the future is the same. But what if we chose something different? What if we chose to find the good news in each day? This podcast is a collection of interviews with friends, mentors, colleagues on their good news. From business to health to politics and everything in between, it's my hope that you leave with a boost and find your good news. Summer and I were connected by my dear friend, Lindsay. If you haven't listened to my episode with Lindsay, go back after this episode and go give it a listen. But Summer has so many facets that we get to delve into during this episode. One of the reasons I wanted to have her join was she achieved a goal that many would have said was impossible. She is a part of this year's SI swimsuit issue. We delve into achieving goals and saying yes to ourselves. Without further ado, my episode with Summer Wilson. Well, I start every episode the same, Summer. I like to ask, what's your good news?
My news is I was selected as a finalist for Sports Illustrated Swimsuit and got the opportunity to shoot with UTSA and actually landed a spot in Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition 2021.
I mean, I have been watching your journey and I am so excited we're going to delve into it today. You know, we were introduced by a friend, Lindsay Thomas, who's also recorded. And I said this in the pre-show. She is the bomb. Shout out, Lindsay. I said this,
Lindsay. I miss being your roommate.
When I was like, what a small world.
Like the smallest.
It gets even smaller because the way we were connected was a couple days before I'm on Instagram and I am asking friends, hey, who should I interview? And I had seen your post not 2 days before. And I was like, I have to ask Summer to be on an episode. So this is just so exciting because I can't wait to delve into like what the process was like, but let's set the foundation. Like how did you get here? Like what's been the process like?
I mean, you and I actually just spoke about this right before we started. Like, it's crazy how you tap into the universe or you tap into what your passions are and what you really do. And when you set that focus in, it's really crazy how things start happening for you. How it all started for me, it was in the pandemic and I was bored. I think a lot like a lot of people. And I cheered for the Raven. Oh my God. Like I bought.
We couldn't watch another episode of Tiger King. Like,
no, I mean, too hot to handle, watched it 3 times. Like, I mean, they were great shows, but you couldn't do it so much. I bought like every single freaking game that you could buy on Amazon, like Jenga, what are the other ones? Like, I can't remember. I can look at my cabinets. Oh, now they're great. They're great party tricks now. Yes. I mean, I'm not kidding. I got a Peloton. I bought like, disco ball lights. I went to the music. Like I was trying to do everything possible to really entertain myself. But one of my girlfriends messaged me and saw on Instagram, kind of like how you randomly saw like me, she was like, hey, I just saw that Sports Illustrated is doing a swim search online. You should do it. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, no way. I was like, as girlfriend, my time has come and passed. I am 30 years old. Like I cheer for the Ravens. I'm about to hang up those pom-poms. Like Sports Illustrated, that is iconic. No way. And I like sat there and like, I feel like I'm the kind of person when you like put something in front of me that's like kind of tickles my fancy a little, I can't like turn away from it. No. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should. I'm like,
what are the steps? Like, I'm just curious.
I'm just curious. Like, what do I do now? And I really looked into it and I booked with a photographer. Her name's Rachel Cooper. She's really big in Baltimore with a lot of like boutiques and things like that. And I was like, listen, girl, I think I'm going to go for Sports Illustrated. And she was like, what? I was like, I've never even shot in a bikini before outside of like the beach, you know? Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. We shot and it's like, oh my God, we were in the literal middle of nowhere, Maryland, in this like some sort of hiking trail thing that I'd seen a picture of a fountain in the hiking trail somewhere. And we finally found it. There was literally like freaking 20 families standing around. And I was like, yo, I can't do this. Like there are like adults with children and strollers, like in swimmies in this thing. And she was just like, how bad do you want this, girl? Like, I mean, we're here. We just walked like a mile to get here. And I sat there and I was like, number one, I've never done this. Number two, my whole ass is out. Like, this is awkward. I'm in like bangles and like this tiny little bikini and I have like oil all over me. Like, who is this chick? I'm sure everyone was thinking. And I was like, I guess I'm going to show up who this chick is. So I literally got in the water, and that's my first bikini shoot that I submitted on Instagram the following day. She sent me pictures really quickly, and literally I posted it. And within minutes, MJ Day, the editor of Sports Illustrated, reposted it and my words and everything. And I literally like, oh my God, my roommate at the time, I was like, Katrina, what the fuck? I'm sorry, I don't know if I can.
No, we can't.
Okay. Well, what the fuck? With like 15,000 exclamation points. I was like, I think like the head honcho just reposted me. And at that time, like, I didn't know what I was getting into. Like, I literally just did it and was like, whatever, which again, if you've like followed me now, like it's been a year that I've literally posted every day, but it really just kind of set the tone like, hey, maybe I do have a message that people want to hear. And It wasn't just the picture, but what I was saying is like, 30 is not too old. And like beauty doesn't have a shelf life, and I don't know. It just like helped me figure out, maybe I want to figure out what my brand is, because prior to that, I just posted like witty, funny captions and whatever, but I never spent time on like, maybe I have something to say that people want to hear. So it gave me the stillness of the pandemic, gave me the opportunity to really dive in and try to figure out what that was.
I think that that's been the beauty of the pandemic. And I say that and know that there has been so much pain, but it really caused a lot of people to like stop. And like the whole idea of this podcast started when I was like sitting by myself and I was like, what if I just did it? You know, like, and I love so much that you talk about 30 is like old. And I'm like, I hit 30 and I was like, let's go. So I mean, how did you kind of get over those voices that were like, don't do it? Like, it sounded like you kind of like just were like, I'm just going to jump in. Like, how did you kind of get over that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty spontaneous anyway, and like sometimes a good or a bad way. I mean, I'm kind of like down for whatever, but I think I've said this and I've done another podcast before, and I've always represented a brand, like, and that was Ravens for 5 years. And that was my identity. And I loved it. I mean, Jesus, it's the best organization, not because I love the football team, but just the organization and opportunities that it gave me. And I think I have them to thank for the confidence and the training of speaking in front of people, community. But I feel like I said, well, maybe if I'm not cheering, like this is the time to represent me. And 30 isn't old. I feel like at 30, I am more confident than I ever have been, because you kind of get to the point where you don't need 5 billion thousand friends. And if you do, that's fantastic. But like, you don't need them to validate you. Like, you can validate you. At this point. And I am confident in my decisions, and I've made enough mistakes in my life. Trust me that I know what I do and don't want to do. And I know the repercussions of them, but there is not going to be a bad repercussion of going after something that you really think you could potentially be good at. So I felt like a calling. I prayed about it a lot. I read a lot of like manifestation books. Gabrielle Bernstein is the changed my life.
Shout out.
Changed my life, but it just made me have trust in, like I said, the universe and, you know, God or whoever you pray to. It kind of let me surrender like my nerves and self-doubt. Saying, like, what is the worst that is going to happen here? Like, even if the outcome's not what you want to happen, like, to be sure, I'm going to learn something, right?
Yeah.
And even if that's embarrassing myself, like, I just think like you learn something from everything you do. So I think I just was like, I want to do this. And I think MJ seeing my message kind of gave me that boost of confidence to keep going for the following year. It was a long journey, but.
Well, I think it's like what I'm hearing is you just said yes to you, which sounds so simple, but how many times a day do we think about something and you're like, oh no, I'm not. And I think so many people stop themselves from like showing up to their full authentic self. And it's like, it just sounds like, I hope people like leave and I'm like, you know, that voice inside the back of their heads. And I'm like, maybe I could, and go do it. Like, just
Do it. I say this all the time. Like any person that you idolize that does something fantastic, like Celine Dion, Tom Brady, like whoever, like they threw a football for the first time one time. Like Celine Dion opened her mouth and sang on a mic for the first time, was like, holy shit, I am Jesus of the vocals. Like, you know, like everybody who is good at something figured out that, hey, let me try this one time. And a lot of times we do that as kids because we're just down to do anything. There's nobody judging us. It's whatever. But I think we rarely do that because we have social media that tear people apart and you see people doing stuff and they're like, oh my God, she's so annoying. But I did that to the point where I just didn't care. It was like, what's it going to hurt? I could maybe be in Sports Illustrated or I just have now some good content. Okay. Like,
you're like win-win.
Whatever. Like, and again, like it just helped me. I had never been one to write tons of posts like I do. It's really helped me discover that maybe I can be motivational to people. And that's been really fun for me.
So you were talking a little bit earlier about like, what is my brand? Like my posts used to be short and witty. Like what have you found, like as you've done some more like creative writing, I'm going to call it creative writing to write our posts. Like you kind of have to be creative. So how did you kind of like delve into that?
Always loved to write. Like my whole freaking life. Like again, I wrote a lot. And then you kind of grow up and you were in like journalism or something. Like I found myself putting time into other things and things that maybe, I used to be kind of good at that and enjoy that. And I will say, I find that I'm the most creative after I've had a glass of two of wine. And it'll be like one thought that I have and I write it down. I have probably like 500 notes in my phone. And anytime I have a thought, I put it down and then I'll lay in bed. And that's when my creative juices are like literally going insane. I cannot sleep to save my life because that's just when I'm most creative. But I start writing off of that. And I don't know, it just starts flowing. And then I'll go back and edit the next day and post it. But I've found a lot of passion in being the person that I hope relatable and not just like some like set ass bikini picture. And I feel like people say that and be like, oh, you posted a thoughty picture with this caption. Well, yes, I did post the thoughty picture because it's Sports Illustrated. Do we understand we're going for it? But the cool thing about Sports Illustrated is they get the models a voice. Like they always say, you cannot just be an attractive woman here. We want a woman with a story, a woman with momentum, and a woman who can make a difference and has something to say. And I just feel like what I'm trying to represent is, number one, you can do it at 30, 31, 50, 60, however freaky that you want to be. And that being real is really cool and beautiful.
Let's say that again for the people in the back. Being real is cool. Like you don't need to be this like face-tuned, snatched little waist. Like, and that's again, great if you do, but not everybody is like, and I just think that there's so many apps that people alter themselves that you barely can even tell that you're basing your perception off of an avatar. Like you're not a computer. You are not a cartoon character. Like when people go on and edit themselves, they have now turned themselves into like a cartoon character. Yeah, it's in my opinion that you can't compare yourself to. And then people go down this spiral of why do I not look like this person? Because that person. Like you know, you're like,
and not.
I think it's so hard.
Like I don't mean that that like. If you're super thin, like I'm a thin person too, but I also have rolls and cellulite on my stomach and my ass and my thighs. And I eat like shit sometimes. I eat great sometimes. I mess up sometimes. Sometimes I have a great day. Like I try to translate that being real is so okay.
Well, and I just have appreciated, like, since I've gotten to kind of watch before it, like the magazine launched and everything, like I've gotten to see all this, like, and I'm just like, blown away because as someone who's like, you know, it's like, oh, you think 30, you hear this narrative, you're like, oh, you could never do that. And you're like, you see, and I'm like, heck yes, dream big, people. Like,
right. And look at you with your podcast. I mean, Katherine, that's incredible. Like, that is so cool. That's honestly something I want to do one day.
Do it.
I don't know what to do, but I'm sure I could figure it out.
I'll give you all the downloads after it. Lindsay needs to do her podcast too. I'm not editing that portion out because I'm manifesting that for her if she wants it. She should. I know. No, but I just appreciate it because I think there's so often, like, I know I've gotten in the trap of like, oh, those people are so pretty. Like, that's not going to be my reality. But it's like, what is pretty? Like, I think we're like anymore? SI, like, has like, I so appreciate smashing what it means to be a swimsuit model. Like, what it means to be a model. Like, it's like, heck yeah. Like, I don't know.
Model now is it's transforming to a role model. You know, it's not just this like stick skinny or like perfect babe walking down the street, or at least the cookie cutter look of that, if that makes sense. Like, it's representing all walks of life, and that is so beautiful to me. And that's why I just being this magazine, I'm taken aback by it because it's so historic and breaking boundaries. And all the women that I've met through this, I genuinely tell you, are incredible and have a story. And, you know, you look through these pages and you're not like, oh, I wish I looked like her. You're like, oh, I can see myself. Sure.
Yeah.
I look like her too. And oh my God, you get on her Instagram. It's like, oh my God, she doesn't have this like perfect background. She has like a history that I can relate to. So it's really cool.
I like your point on it becoming a role model, because what I have noticed in all the pictures is everyone is so confident. And I think that is honestly, it's like being confident in who we are, like, again, for people in the back, like, that's really cool.
Yes. And it's sometimes hard to get there, you know, like, that doesn't just come.
No.
Like, yes, people have confidence, but truly being like at peace internally, I think gives confidence. And I actually said this today about work. I was really nervous to do this demo today. It's my first one I ever did. I work for Toast. And I was like, why am I nervous? I'm not nervous about this part, but I'm nervous about this part. And I think where nerves ultimately derive from is self-doubt. It is. Anytime you are nervous about something, it's because you're doubting something about yourself.
Yeah.
I think going in and figuring out what that doubt is and how to correct it and how to heal that self-doubt can take the nerves out of doing really anything.
Well, and I think it's like the self-doubt, to build on that. It's like, you allow like something that hasn't happened, you let that self-doubt color what's going to happen. And you're like, it hasn't even
a picture.
Yeah. Through that lens. And you're like, well, maybe it's not going to be that today. So that's a really cool way to kind of like think about like things that make you nervous, or like along the way. Like, I hope people like kind of take a step back and be like, why am I nervous about X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, why am I doubting myself? Why can't I do this? And I think that'll slingshot you into a little bit more confidence when you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I can do this. You know, I don't know. That's how I feel about that.
I love that. Well, what has been the most interesting thing? I mean, you said it's been a year-long process. For people that are not like super familiar with the process, what has it been like? What have you learned? Give us the details.
I mean,
we're opening up a box.
It became a lifestyle for a second there. There's other girls who went through this with us. Like, it started last July is when they announced it. I submitted for the first time in August. You submitted a 60-second video as well. They did different contests throughout the year, but it usually is only like a month and a half long process. But because of the pandemic in the industry, it's kind of hard to work around that. And so they weren't really sure when we'd be able to do, if at all, things in person. And you know, again, the industry was at a standstill and there was just a lot of questions. And all I knew was I'm going to be persistent and not stop. So I just posted often with different shoots that I had done. I tried to come up with creative content with the contest and everything. And again, at the same time, how to brand myself as this real person that people can relate to. And, you know, things that are going on in the real world and speaking about it. Topics people don't typically speak about. So whether that be mental health or like for me, I've spoken this, I'm sure Lindsay can speak on this too. Like, I've been like a wild child in my day, you know, like I've made plenty of mistakes. I have really done some regrettable things. I've done some really amazing things too, but really taking that time to step back and reflect on those things during this time, I did. I was like, you know, I should probably work on that. I'm going to read some self-help books, and I'm not above thinking that I'm this perfect human that I am not. Like I have some inner workings I need to figure out. So along the journey, I've gotten to do that. But back to the process. Yes, we posted in November. I casted with them, which was incredible. They women that they wanted to cast with. The whole editorial team, which is all women ran, which is so cool. That was awesome. And then it was kind of like radio silent for a little bit. We didn't know what was next. Because again, like this pandemic, it's a massive brand and you've got to figure out how to work around it. And in the early spring, they sent me an email and said that we wanted to have a call with you. And I was like, passed out on the ground. I can tell you what time. It's 2:30. I know where I was sitting in the kitchen. Like, I was like, holy shit. This has to mean something, right? Yeah. Unless they're telling me like, girl, we don't like you. Or maybe they're saying, girl, like, I don't know. I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep my brain open. Like, whatever. I'm going to curl my hair just in case I'm on the video. I have no idea what's going to happen. But we get on there and it's a whole team. And Jay's like, congrats, guys. You're the top. And we were like, everyone's freaking out. But we still really didn't even know what that meant. And in the end, she told us that we actually were going to be shooting with Utah, which is this world-renowned photographer, like, beyond my shoots with like Chrissy Teigen, everybody like shoots all huge people. Yeah. Like, and again, I'm just in Baltimore, like currently at the time I was in medical sales. So that was insane. So we went and shot in Atlantic City. I got to walk in Miami Swim Week, was like a groundbreaking runway show too, that like broke the internet basically because we did have all body types. Yeah. Every single type of body type that you can look for. And it was so inclusive and that happened. And then we got to go to the launch party with like, what a launch party. Like I had to launch this magazine. I'm like, woo, literally it's just been so crazy. And I'm just forever grateful and feel so blessed to have been discovered in this capacity. That just for itself should go to show you, like, I am not in the industry. Like, I am not dating anyone famous. I am not doing anything like my boyfriend is a great guy. But like, I self-made myself into this and from hard work and like maybe putting myself there a little too much sometimes. Oh, sorry.
Maddox, Summer's sweet dog, is just saying hello to everyone.
Hush, honey. I love you. But it just goes to show you, like, with hard work and being super passionate about something and being yourself and showing who you are and persistent, you will get somewhere. Maybe even if that somewhere isn't where you want to be, you will get somewhere.
Well, and I think the thing you were talking about is persistence, which you're like, I'm going to talk about all these things along the way, like the good and the bad. And like, how many times do we see a curated picture to go back? And it's like, you don't realize that there are times where you're like, what's happening? What am I doing? And then like later on in a pandemic, we're all stressed out. We all don't know what's happening. And you just were like, I'm just going to like consistently show up as me. Like how wild is that? Like, you know, like,
right. It makes me feel like, again, I went from like retired NFL, sitting at home in a pandemic. This guy had actually broken up with me right before all this happened, which kind of gave me the boost. Like, I'm in this. I was in a dark place when I started this whole thing. And it really just gave me the boost. And I think, and I say this to a lot of my friends too, when they feel in a rut or they feel like, oh, I'm just like, I used to be this person. I used to be so outgoing. I'm like, well, what are you not doing to do? You know, what did you stop doing? And that will lie in, well, I stopped reading the books I liked, or I stopped painting, or I stopped doing XYZ passion, you know? So I think during that darkness, I realized I find passion and freaking going for it. Yeah. And then encouraging others to do the same and making others feel fantastic.
I think what's so cool and what I really, resonated with is like, being a whole version of ourselves. Like, I know I just said that, but it's like, I think so often we feel like we have to put on these masks or only show parts of ourselves. And it sounds like you took the time to like dive into like everything about yourself. And you're like, I'm just going to do it. Like, why not? And I think I hope there's so much beauty in that. And I hope people hear that and say, yeah, it's a multifaceted approach I took to like do it.
I think that's great. And I use multifaceted actually a lot. And I love that you just...
Well, we just had a mind meld.
Right. And I think like people don't think either they have the time or the bandwidth or the mental capacity or the emotional capacity to do things. And we as human beings are not meant to just sit behind a desk and then go to sleep and then wake up and do it again. Like, that is literally not why you were created. And there's so much untapped potential. I always think about like just people in like third world countries or somewhere who don't have the opportunity to show how talented or what hasn't been uncovered in talent, you know? And I hope that people, and I've had people reach out saying like, you motivated me to do this. That makes me feel fantastic because I just know that there's so much untapped potential in so many people. It's just, they don't think they have the time to do it, or they don't want to spend the time because the time means that they've invested and now people know they're invested. And if they fail, what does that mean? Who cares? If you don't do all those things, you're never going to succeed. So
I don't know where we thought failing means that you're a failure. Somewhere along the lines, like we took on that baggage and I was like, I am not picking up that bag. It is not cute.
Amen, sister.
If I will tell you in this podcast, I have messed up many a times. Just keep going. You learn something new every day.
Exactly. I just feel like it's failing forward, and, you know, it might not, again, like you failed, but what did you get out of it? You learned for next time to do better or whatever.
And the time thing, it's like, I was in like a 90-day goal setting thing last year. And that's kind of how this podcast started, was I set a goal and she had us do time and think about 7 days in a week and how many hours. And like, we blocked it out. And it's like, oh, you can find time if you really believe in something and want to do it. But I think so many people are like, oh, I'm busy. I'm like, being on Instagram or watching that Netflix show is not busy.
Yeah. I mean, it's as much as it's important to feed your body with great things, and not that I am healthy by any means. Listen, your girl loves McDonald's, but it's about what you're feeding your brain. You've gotta, I find myself scrolling often, then I'm like, oh my God, I'm not making these cool videos. And it just becomes a toxic thing where now what I've curated is not good enough, because you're constantly feeding your brain with what you think is good enough. And, sometimes I just got to put it away because it can be discouraging. But that's when I find myself, okay, I feel my best when I wake up and listen to a really good podcast. If I listen to something that starts my brain and feeds my brain with some emotional coffee, that thing that's going to stimulate me and really propel me into my day. If you're waking up and Mike's going to listen to this and be like, girl, you wake up and definitely look at Instagram. Because I do that. But I do working on, listen, I'm keeping it real. I preach these things, but sometimes I find myself doing it. But you wake up, sure, look at Instagram, but turn on the radio, listen to your favorite music in the background, walk around with your headphones, clean up in the morning or whatever you do, and listen to a 30-minute podcast on something you're passionate about. I've been listening to creating social content that people really like, and by this girl who I think is freaking awesome. Her name is Jasmine Star, and I love her. But I just think, feeding your brain, your mind, your heart with as good of things as you feed your body, if that's important to you, it can really make a difference.
I totally agree. And that's kind of how this baby came to fruition, was I was waking up and listening to the news in April and May of 2020. And I was anxious and nervous. And I was to your point, am feeding it anxiety things.
Of course. Oh my God.
It's just how do you, it's hard sometimes because you're okay, I'm in this little rut, but it's you're right. Just take 5 minutes, take a minute, meditate, pray, journal. Everyone's got a minute.
Take a minute. Yes, seriously. And it can make the biggest difference in flipping your whole psyche around. I am a very big believer in that, because I get in ruts where I'm just what am I doing? I was on this incredible journey for so long, and now it's kind of at a standstill waiting to hear who they pick for rookie, which is, I'm fine. I'd be very excited too, but if I didn't, so many good things have happened. But I'm at a point now where I'm still trying to keep up the momentum, but it's challenging. So you have to do things that are going to keep propelling you forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's when we were growing up, it's you're in school and the boxes to check. And then it's along the way, we grow up and we're oh, we have to make the own boxes we want to check. And it's that's really hard sometimes. So but you have to slow down to figure out, what is my brand? What do I want to, put out there? Who do I want to be? Right. Who am I? And it sounds you're taking the time to do that.
Yeah. And I had people ask me that. They're what are you? And I'm like, I don't know. Who am I? Like, you're like,
it's like a very existential question. It's like, I feel like I need to like put my like hand under my chin and just think about it for like.
Seriously. I'm like, I don't know. What do I like? Because you don't really think about it, you know, like people are like, what's your fun fact? You're like, I don't know. I'm not fun at all. Like you start like questioning it. Like, I've never done one.
Two truths and a lie.
Seriously. But yeah, I gave you the time to sit down and just kind of figure that out. And I think, I think my initial thing was, being 30, but now it's turned into like, I'm a real ass bitch. I really am.
Yes.
And I'm proud of that. And I've always kind of been that way. And I've gone through a phase where I've face-tuned the shit out of myself. And I look back and I'm like, who is that bitch? I'm sorry. Like I almost want to delete the pictures, but it was a memory. But like that, it just doesn't sell anymore. And not that I'm trying to sell myself, but it's detrimental to people. And I don't want to ever be that detriment to someone. Like I don't ever want to be the reason someone doesn't feel good about themselves. Like I want nothing more than to make every person believe that they can.
Oh, I mean, mic drop. I feel like we could keep going for a really long time. It's like from smashing goals, like at any age, to like failing forward, to being persistent, to how do you feed your brain? Like you've given us so many little nuggets along the way. Like what do you want to leave the people with?
I think I'm going to leave the people with this. And I thought about this the other day and I posted about this on my Instagram, that every single thing in your life is happening at the right time. Your time is always on time. Literally being stuck at a red light too long made it so you potentially didn't get in the wreck at the next one, or you ran into a certain person at the grocery store and you made their day, or they made yours, and you will never forget that moment. Like every single thing that you are doing and every bit of timing in your day happens for a reason, because it helps you to intersect with what you're supposed to in life. Like for instance, like 5 years ago, I met my boyfriend on a run. I went on a run instead of a happy hour. Yeah. And we didn't immediately start dating. That's a long story. But I'm just saying, like, I met him because I decided to randomly go on a run and he got off of work early that day. Like, I just think everything happens for a reason. Your time is always on time. If you don't think you're deserving, you are. If you miss an opportunity, you didn't fail. It wasn't your opportunity. Like that was not meant for you. And that's hard to believe because like you said, we've learned so much that failing is like, oh my God, but there is a reason why that opportunity wasn't for you. And maybe in 1 week or 1 year, you'll look back and say, oh, that's why. Yeah. Or maybe like why a relationship didn't work out. Like there's a reason always. And it's so hard to see it when you're in it, but you just have to remind yourself every time you're defeated or disappointed, there's an entire reason why this is happening, whether it's a learning lesson or having you intersect with your for a reason. That's why.
Man, Summer, thank you so much. Maddox, thank you too, buddy. You were a great addition. For everyone, he is looking at the camera just very cutely right now.
He's ready to pop off.
Yeah. Where can people, before we wrap up, where can people find you on social media and follow along?
Cool. So my Instagram is Summer Doing Things. I am typically doing a lot of things. I love to fun, go out, eat, post my dog, fun outfits. I try to be inspirational, like I said. So hopefully you do find some value in following me. I have Facebook, but I don't really use it. My TikTok is worthless, so I'm definitely not going to tell that one either. We'll stick to the Instagram.
Yeah.
You can find me on the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit under models. So crazy.
Heck yeah. Well, Summer, thank you so much. Summer has such great energy, and I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. If you liked, please share, subscribe, leave a review, and join me next week for another episode of the Your Good News podcast.